The phone wasn't turning on. Claire had left it on the kitchen counter after Sunday lunch, said it had been glitchy all week. She didn't ask me to fix it, but I figured I'd help. Evan used to take his things to Chewy's repair shop when he was younger, and I still trusted the place. It was quiet when I walked in. Chewy was behind the counter, wiping down the glass with a cloth that had seen better days. I handed him the phone, said it just needed a screen replacement, or maybe a battery check. He ran a few tests, pried open the back. 10 minutes passed. Then he froze. He didn't look confused, he looked scared. "Marina." He said, his voice lower than I'd ever heard it. "I need to show you something." I stepped closer. He tilted the screen toward me. The phone had booted. On the home screen, a hidden folder tucked behind several utilities titled Plan B. He tapped it open. Inside were screenshots. Text chains. Notes. The first message was from Evan. "My Evan. Once she's out of the picture, we can move forward." I already started microdosing. I stared at the words, thinking it had to be a mistake. A joke. A terrible prank. Chewy scrolled down. Claire's reply. "Keep the doses low. We don't want her ending up in the ER before everything's finalized." More texts followed. Talk of access to accounts, life insurance, a conversation about managing perception, about making sure I seemed confused enough for things to look natural. She looked at me and whispered, "Cancel your cards. Change every password. Run. Now." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My body felt frozen, but my mind was already moving. I asked him to download the files onto a flash drive. He nodded, hands steady. Mine were not. When I walked out of that shop, the world looked the same, but nothing felt familiar. Not the street. Not my name. And certainly not the house I was about to return to. Claire married Evan 5 years ago in a courthouse ceremony that surprised us all. No dress fittings, no engagement parties, just a photo outside City Hall with Evan's tie crooked and Claire holding a single white rose. She was smart, sharp around the edges, but polite. Efficient always. Not warm, but consistent. At first, I blamed the distance on generational gaps. She worked in finance, used words like leverage and liquidate in casual conversation. I was a nurse for 30 years. Our lives didn't overlap much, but she visited every Sunday. She brought wine, helped with dishes, asked about Henry's blood pressure and my knees. I thought it was kindness. Now I can't stop replaying it. How she once said, "This smells strong. Maybe skip your pills today." How she offered to refill my weekly pill organizer. How she insisted on preparing lunch herself when we had guests, then made sure I had the first plate. Each moment feels like a seed she planted, waiting for it to bloom into something fatal. I sat in my car with the flash drive in my lap, and the phone now perfectly working tucked back into Claire's old purse. I stared out the windshield for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. But something shifted. Before I left the shop, Chue had said, "Don't go to the police yet. Watch, then act. You need to be sure and safe." That word kept echoing, safe. I'd delivered babies, resuscitated patients, stitched wounds in emergency rooms. I'd faced chaos. But nothing made my chest ache like this, like knowing someone I welcomed into my home who called me mom was mapping out my end. When I finally started the car, the street looked longer than I remembered. My neighborhood felt colder. I gripped the steering wheel and drove home like I was entering enemy territory. The porch light was on when I pulled in. Henry was inside, probably reading. Claire's purse was still by the stairs. Her phone would go back in before she noticed it was gone. I just had to keep moving, one quiet step at a time. Claire texted just after 9. "Dinner tomorrow at our place. Evan wants to see you." No emojis. No unnecessary warmth, just straight to the point like always. I stared at the message longer than I should have. Then I replied, "Sure. Looking forward to it." I didn't tell Henry. I said I had a headache and needed some air. He offered to drive me, but I waved it off. He kissed my cheek and told me to take my time. Claire opened the door before I could knock. She was wearing her hair down, soft music playing in the background. The table was already set for 3. "Evan's running late," she said. "But I made your favorite." I wasn't sure what she thought that was. She brought out soup in a deep white bowl, steam rising from the surface. "Smells good," I said, taking the spoon. "Eat it while it's hot." She insisted, sitting across from me with her chin propped on her hand. I stirred slowly, pretending to taste, then placed my spoon down. "Bathroom." She pointed down the hall without a word. I took the bowl with me, careful not to spill. The hallway planter was filled with fake ivy. I knelt, poured the soup slowly into the soil, and wiped the rim with a tissue. My heart pounded like I'd done something wrong. When I came back, Claire was texting. "You didn't finish," she said, half smiling. "It's rich," I replied. "I'll take the rest to go." She nodded. At home, I waited until Henry was asleep. Then I retrieved the planter, scooped a sample into a sandwich bag, and spread the residue on a paper towel. Pale gray. Slightly bitter. Not familiar, but not benign either. I opened a notebook and began listing the symptoms I'd brushed off the last month. Lightheadedness. Nausea. Blurred vision after dinner. Maybe I had been imagining things until now. I sealed the bag, slid it into the freezer, and closed the notebook. When I turned off the kitchen light, I could see Claire's purse still near the stairs, right where I'd left the phone. I waited until morning, until the coffee was brewing and the sun had started to push through the kitchen blinds. Then I laid it all out in front of Henry. The flash drive, the printouts, the bagged soup residue. At first, he didn't say a word. He picked up one of the screenshots with both hands, as if afraid it might burn him. The messages were clear. Evan's name was right there. Claire's too. My husband rubbed his face, leaned back in the chair, and said, "This has to be a mistake." I didn't answer him. I let the silence stretch. He read the second printout, then the third. Finally, his voice cracked. "She called you Mom. Every week she came here." I nodded slowly. "She watched you get dizzy and asked if you were okay. She asked if you wanted to move in with them next year. Said they'd take care of you." I pushed the bag with the gray powder toward him. "I'm not imagining it, Henry." He didn't argue again. He just whispered, "I think we need help." By lunchtime, we had an appointment with a lawyer, Audrey Tran. Late 30s, sharp calm, in the way you hope your lawyer will be when your world's unraveling. We met her in a small office 2 towns over. She reviewed the materials in silence, then looked up and said, "This isn't just manipulative. It's criminal." She laid out the steps. "Do not confront them. Do not change your behavior. Move all financial assets immediately. Change your passwords. Cut their access gradually. Make copies of everything and keep them off-site." She asked if we'd told anyone else. We hadn't. She nodded, satisfied. "Then you still have control." Back at home, I closed our joint checking account, opened a new one in my name only, and canceled every recurring payment I could remember. Henry walked through the house with a notepad, writing down every account number he could find. That night, I slipped my wallet under my pillow and locked the bedroom door. Claire's car was still parked in the driveway. Audrey told us to start from the beginning, every account, every signature, every transaction. By noon, our dining table looked like a crime scene made of paper. Bank statements, insurance forms, password lists, photocopies of our IDs. Henry found at first a second credit card under his name. Opened 6 months ago. The charges were small at first: takeout car washes, a gym membership we never used. Then hotel stays, luxury wine spa treatments. None of them ours. Audrey's voice was steady over the phone. "That's identity fraud. He forged your consent." It didn't stop there. She asked if we had any active life insurance. I said yes, a modest policy through my old job, nothing substantial. She called the provider directly while we waited. When she came back on the line, her tone had changed. "There's another policy," she said. $850,000. Claire Keller is listed as the primary beneficiary. I felt my stomach tighten. We didn't authorize that. I know, Audrey replied. But someone did, and it wasn't the insurance company. Henry sat down hard in his chair, staring at nothing. We spent the rest of the day closing accounts, freezing credit lines, setting up the new trust. Audrey's assistant walked us through moving the house title out of joint ownership and into a protective trust under my name. It's harder to steal what's legally invisible, she said. When the paperwork was done, I thought I'd feel relief. I didn't. I felt stripped. Every account, every paper we touched was another reminder of how deep Evan and Claire had reached into our lives without hesitation or guilt. Before shutting down my old email, I checked my online medical portal just to see if anything had been altered there too. Buried under test results and prescription renewals was a new note. Patient reported confusion and disorientation. Recommended neurological observation. The signature was from Dr. Levinson Evans' college roommate. I printed it, folded it twice, and set it on top of the trust papers. Audrey would need to see it first thing in the morning. Audrey arrived early that morning just after sunrise, with a slim black case under her arm and a quiet, practiced urgency in her step. Within an hour, we had 2 hidden microphones in the living room and one above the kitchen doorway. The feed went straight to Audrey's laptop, parked in the back bedroom, with the door shut. At 10 sharp, Claire and Evan pulled into the driveway. Claire carried a bottle of sparkling cider. Evan had a leather folder tucked under his arm. Brunch. Claire smiled. Smells amazing in here. I nodded and thanked her. Then returned to slicing fruit. No meat, just cornbread, eggs, and a salad with vinaigrette. Claire had always claimed she didn't eat anything heavy in the morning. I remembered every detail now, whether I wanted to or not. "You've looked tired lately," she said, her voice light, almost affectionate. "Are you sure you're getting enough sleep?" I poured the cider without answering. Evan leaned back in his chair. "We were thinking it might be time to help you two out a little more, just in case." He opened the folder and slid it across the table. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, financial delegation, all of it typed up, highlighted, ready for signatures. I picked up the pen, smiled, and said, "Thank you. I'll look these over tonight." Claire tilted her head, lips pressed tight, like she didn't want to push too hard too fast. After they left, Audrey closed the laptop and brought it to the kitchen. She played back the living room feed, Claire's voice. "Once the papers are signed, we can make it look natural. She already gets dizzy. Use that. Then Evan. She trusts us. She won't fight it. Once the accounts are ours, she won't have a reason to." Audrey pressed pause. The room was still. I gathered the folder and set it next to the trust papers, untouched. The signatures they wanted weren't coming. Instead, I started a list of everything they'd underestimated and added one more recorder near the stairwell. By the end of the week, everything we owned was sealed inside the trust. Audrey handed me the final file, her tone even, but her eyes steady on mine. "From this moment on, nothing moves without your signature," she said. "Not a dollar, not the house, not the car." I nodded, feeling the weight of the pages more than the protection they promised. The house, once ours, was now mine alone. Legally invisible to anyone but me. That night my phone buzzed. "Claire, can you bring your ID to dinner?" she wrote. "Just need to match some info for insurance updates." Evan said it's quick. I stared at the screen until the message dimmed. No follow-up. No emoji. Just the same casual tone she used when asking for recipes. I didn't reply. The next morning, I called the insurance office directly. I gave them my policy number, my name, my date of birth. The woman on the line hesitated. "Mrs. Eldon, your file was recently updated," she said. "There's a pending claim attached to your name." My grip tightened on the phone. "A claim, yes. It lists a health crisis as the trigger. The payout date is set for the 24th. I checked the calendar. 19 days. I asked who filed it. There was a pause, papers shuffling. Then her voice dropped. It lists your son and daughter-in-law as authorized contacts. I thanked her, hung up, and sat perfectly still. The silence in the house felt sharper than usual. Outside, wind brushed against the windows, and for a moment, it sounded like someone breathing. I went to the file cabinet, slid the trust documents into the top drawer, and locked it. Then I picked up my phone and texted Audrey, "They've filed a claim." Her reply came seconds later. "Do not confront them. I'll handle the paperwork. Start recording everything." I powered off the phone and set it face down. The only thing louder than the quiet was the thought of what they believed would happen in less than 3 weeks. 3 days after the insurance call, a small package arrived at our doorstep. No return label, no note, just a clear bottle of supplements with a gold cap. The label read, Vita Heart Plus, a brand I'd never seen before. A few minutes later, Claire texted, "Just sending you something to help with fatigue. Evan said you've been feeling weak lately." I set the bottle on the counter unopened. When Henry came in, I pointed at it. "Don't touch it," I said. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. I called Audrey. Within the hour, she had it sent to a lab she trusted. She said she'd rush the results. That night, I lay awake listening to the old clock in the hallway, counting every tick. I wondered how long Claire had been planning this, how many times she'd switched my pills, adjusted doses, taken notes on how I reacted. By the next afternoon, Audrey called back. Her voice was calm, but her words weren't. "It's digoxin," she said. "A heart medication. In the wrong hands, it can cause cardiac arrest." Slowly, quietly. I sat down. My hands felt colder than they should have. That's the same class of substance as the powder she added. Combined, it's fatal over time. The evidence was complete now. Messages, recordings, financial fraud, falsified medical notes, and poison. Audrey contacted the district attorney directly. 2 days later, we sat in a gray conference room at the courthouse, sliding the folder across the table. The lead prosecutor flipped through the pages, carefully nodding as he read. "This isn't just a family matter anymore," he said. "It's attempted homicide." He closed the folder and looked up at us. "We'll take it from here, but for now you say nothing. Pretend everything is normal. They can't know we're watching." I agreed, though every muscle in my body screamed to shout to end it. Instead, I smiled at Henry, held his hand under the table and said softly, "Then we wait." That night, I turned off every light in the house and listened for their car in the driveway. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where the house feels too still and the air too clean. Henry was in the backyard trimming the hedge. I was folding towels in the living room, trying not to count the days left on the insurance claims timeline. Then the knock came, 3 quick taps on the door. When I opened it, Claire stood there, Evan just behind her. "Hey, Mom," she said, her voice sugar-coated. "Just wanted to check in. Thought we could bring you breakfast, spend some time together." They both stepped inside without waiting for an answer. Claire set a brown paper bag on the counter. "There's some fresh juice in there. Should help with your energy." She smiled wide. Too wide. Evan pulled out a chair and leaned his elbows on the table. "How's everything been?" His eyes scanned the room, too casual. Too careful. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang again. A different knock this time. When I opened it, 2 plainclothes officers stood on the porch. One was holding a folder. The other already had handcuffs in his belt. "We're looking for Evan and Claire Keller," one said. Claire froze mid-sentence. Evan stood slowly, his face blank. "What is this?" he asked. The officer stepped forward. "You're being detained on suspicion of insurance fraud, attempted poisoning, and identity falsification. You have the right to remain silent." Claire's mouth fell open. Her purse slipped off her shoulder and hit the floor with a thud. Evan didn't blink. He turned to me. "You did this." His voice wasn't angry, just tired. I didn't answer. I looked at Henry, who stood behind them now, arms crossed. He nodded once. Nothing needed to be said. The officers led them out quietly. No yelling, no resistance. Just the sound of Claire's heels scraping the floor as they guided her down the front steps. I picked up the brown paper bag from the counter and tossed it in the trash unopened. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and listened to the quiet. The house feels different now. Still, but not hollow. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask you to tiptoe. Weeks have passed since the arrest. Henry changed all the locks himself, then installed a new security system with cameras at every entrance. He labeled everything neatly, set the passcode to my birthday, and handed me the instructions with a smile that didn't need words. I repainted the guest room, not because I needed to, but because I could. I boxed up the linens. Claire once picked out the ones she said looked neutral and welcoming. I donated them along with the throw pillows and the unused glassware from their last anniversary gift. The devices Audrey planted are gone. The vitamins still sealed are now sealed again, this time in evidence bags. Audrey says Claire's trial is set for early spring. She may face more than one count if the DA expands the case. Evan remains in custody. The judge denied bail. The look on his face when they read the charges never leaves me. It wasn't guilt. It was disbelief, like he still expected me to protect him. Audrey comes by now and then. Last week she sat at the kitchen table while I made tea. She watched me pour the water, then asked gently, "Are you okay?" I said yes. And I meant it. I sleep through the night now. I eat without fear. I laugh when Henry forgets where he put the keys, because now we're the only ones with keys. I mailed Chewy a gift card tucked inside a handwritten note. It said, "You saved more than a life." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Sometimes I walk the hallway alone just to listen to the creak of the floors. No one trailing behind me. No one offering to help with my medicine. The house didn't change, but everything inside me did. And one morning, as the sun broke across the porch and lit the welcome mat, I opened the front door, breathed in deep, and realized it was the first time in months I hadn't looked over my shoulder.